The Galactic Empire had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Every known species lived under its control. Every planet followed its laws. The Dominion Council made the rules, and the 7 elder races who sat on that council believed they had created perfect order. They believed nothing could surprise them anymore. They were wrong. Ambassador was a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms. He belonged to the race, one of the founding members of the Empire. He had served the Council for 200 years, and he thought he had seen everything the galaxy could offer. But on this day, standing on the surface of a dead world called Prime, he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt afraid. The planet was supposed to be empty. The historical records said that the dominant species here had been destroyed 10,000 years ago. The records called them humans. They described them as dangerous creatures, full of emotion and unpredictable behavior. The old texts said the humans had threatened galactic stability, and so the elder races had made a difficult choice. They had sent their fleets to this world and burned it clean. The Great Purging, the history books called it. A necessary action to protect civilization. Had never questioned this history. No one did. It was simply accepted truth like the stars in the sky or the cold of space. The humans were gone. The galaxy was safe. End of story. But now he stood before an ancient structure his survey team had discovered beneath the planet's surface. The building had been hidden protected by technology that should not have existed 10,000 years ago. Inside were data cores, storage devices containing information from the time before the purging. His technical experts had worked for 3 days to activate them. When they finally succeeded, everything believed about history began to fall apart. The data cores contained records from the human government, military communications, evacuation orders, emergency protocols, and most disturbing of all, they contained video footage of the purging itself. Watched the recordings with growing horror. He saw human cities burning under orbital bombardment. He saw millions of people running through the streets, trying to escape the fire falling from the sky. He saw children crying and parents screaming and soldiers dying while trying to defend their homes. But he also saw something else. He saw ships, thousands of ships, launching from hidden bases across the planet. The humans had known the attack was coming. They had prepared for it. While the elder races celebrated their victory above the burning world, millions of humans had escaped into the darkness of space. The extinction was a lie. Felt his legs weaken. He reached out to steady himself against a wall. His second in command, a young named, rushed to his side. "Ambassador, are you unwell?" asked. Could not answer. He simply pointed at the screen showing the evacuation records, looked at the data, and his gray skin turned pale. "This cannot be real," whispered. "The humans are extinct. Everyone knows this." "Everyone knows what they were told," replied, "and what they were told was false." The implications were staggering. If the humans had survived, where had they gone? The galaxy was vast, but the Empire controlled all of it. Every system was mapped. Every planet was. There was nowhere to hide. Unless there was. Remembered the old star charts, the ones showing the regions beyond the galactic rim. Those areas were marked as empty, unexplored, useless. No one had ever bothered to investigate them because the journey would take too long and the resources spent would never be recovered. But what if those regions were not empty at all? What if they had been intentionally ignored? He needed to report this to the Council immediately. But he also knew that doing so would create chaos. The Great Purging was not just a historical event. It was the foundation of the Empire's moral authority. The elder races had justified their rule by claiming they protected civilization from dangerous species. If the galaxy learned that the humans had survived, that the purging had failed, everything would change. While struggled with his thoughts, someone else in the chamber was watching carefully. Dr. Melissa Grant appeared to be a species known for their skill in archaeology and ancient languages. She had joined survey team 6 months ago, recommended by a prestigious university on the. Her credentials were perfect. Her work was excellent. No one suspected that she was not at all. Melissa was human. The surgical modifications that changed her appearance had been painful and took years to complete. Her bones had been restructured. Her skin had been altered. Her eyes had been replaced with artificial ones that looked exactly like eyes. She had learned the language, customs, and history so well that she could fool any native speaker. She had done all of this for one purpose: to watch, to wait, to gather information. And now, the moment her people had prepared for had finally arrived. Melissa slipped away from the main group while they were distracted by the revelations in the data cores. She moved through the ancient corridors until she found a small room where she could be alone. From a hidden compartment in her equipment bag, she pulled out a communication device that looked like nothing the Empire had ever seen. It was small, black, and covered in symbols that no Imperial scientist could read. She activated it and spoke in English, a language that had not been heard in this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. Control, this is Watcher 7. The archives have been found. The Imperial team has accessed the evacuation records. They know we survived. I estimate 6 standard cycles before the Council receives full confirmation. Please advise. The response came quickly, transmitted through a network of hidden relay stations that stretched across the empty space beyond the rim. Watcher 7 message received. Return to extraction point immediately. The awakening has begun. Melissa destroyed the communication device and returned to the survey team. She spent the next several hours helping Ambassador document the findings, playing the role of the loyal scientist. But inside, her heart was beating fast with excitement and fear. Her people had waited 3,000 years for this moment. They had built an entire civilization in secret, hiding in the places the Empire never thought to look. They had grown strong. They had grown patient. And now, finally, they were ready to show the galaxy that humanity had never truly died. The forgotten race was about to be remembered. Commander Cole stood in the operations center of Haven Actual, the largest human station in existence. The station was built inside a hollowed asteroid that measured 50 kilometers across. It floated in the empty space beyond the galactic rim, in a region that Imperial maps marked as worthless and unexplored. For 3,000 years, this place had been the heart of human civilization. And now, everything was about to change. Was 52 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. He had commanded Haven Actual for 15 years, and before that, he had served in the Confederacy Navy for 3 decades. He knew war. He knew sacrifice. He knew what it meant to carry the weight of his entire species on his shoulders. But even with all his experience, the message from Prime made his hands shake. "They found the archives," said Lieutenant Price, his second in command. She was young, only 34, but she had proven herself time and again. She had sharp eyes and a quick mind and trusted her completely. "I know," replied. "I just received confirmation from Watcher 7. The Imperial team accessed the evacuation records. They know we survived the purging." Took a deep breath. "How long do we have?" 6 cycles, maybe less. Once the Dominion Council learns the truth, they will send investigators. And then they will send warships. The 2 officers stood in silence for a moment, looking at the massive display screen that showed the current state of the human civilization. The numbers were impressive. 47 billion people spread across 12 colony worlds and 800 orbital stations. A fleet of 20,000 warships, each one built with technology that surpassed anything the Empire possessed. Medical advances that had extended human to 200 years. Agricultural systems that could feed populations on barren rocks. Energy sources that could power entire cities for centuries. This was what humanity had built while the galaxy believed they were dead. This was the result of 3,000 years of hard work, sacrifice, and determination. Engineer entered the operations center carrying a data pad. He was a large man with thick arms and rough hands, the kind of hands that had built things his entire life. had designed half the ships in the Confederacy fleet. He knew their capabilities better than anyone. "I finished the tactical analysis you requested," said. "If the Empire sends their standard response fleet, we can destroy it without losing a single ship. If they send their entire military, the war would last approximately 6 months. We would win, but the casualties on both sides would be significant." Nodded slowly. "And if we choose a diplomatic approach?" Shrugged. "That depends on whether they are willing to talk. Based on our intelligence, the current Dominion Council is divided. Some members want to maintain the old ways. Others are tired of living under constant rules and restrictions. If we approach this carefully, we might be able to create divisions that work in our favor." Stepped forward. "Commander, may I speak freely?" "Always. We have waited 3,000 years. Our ancestors suffered and died so that we could survive. Many of our people believe we should return with fire and vengeance. They want the Empire to feel the same pain they inflicted on us. I understand that desire. I feel it myself sometimes. But revenge will not bring back the billions who died on Earth. It will only create more death, more suffering, more orphans crying for parents who will never return." Looked at her with respect. "What would you suggest?" "We show them what we have become. We demonstrate our power, yes, but we also demonstrate our restraint. We prove that humanity is not the dangerous, chaotic species their history books describe. We show them that we built something worth admiring, not fearing." Made a sound of disagreement. "And if they attack us anyway? If they decide that our existence is too threatening to tolerate?" "Then we defend ourselves," replied. "But we let them make that choice. We let history record that we came in peace and they chose war. That way, whatever happens next, we keep our honor." Considered her words carefully. He thought about his grandfather, who had been born on one of the early station settlements. His grandfather had told him stories about the old days, about the starvation and the disease and the constant fear that the Empire would find them. He remembered the promise his grandfather had made him swear to uphold. "We will survive. We will grow strong. And when the time comes, we will be better than those who tried to destroy us." "Contact all fleet commanders," said finally. "Tell them to prepare for Operation Homecoming. We will send a diplomatic message to the Dominion Council and request formal contact. If they accept, we talk. If they refuse, we wait and try again. We will not fire the first shot." Looked unhappy but nodded his acceptance, smiled with relief. "What about our people inside the Empire?" she asked. "We have thousands of watchers embedded in their society. If the Council starts looking for human infiltrators, they will be in danger. Begin extraction protocols for non-essential personnel. Anyone who can leave safely should do so immediately. Those in critical positions will remain until we know how the Council responds." Turned back to the display screen. Somewhere out there, beyond the darkness of empty space, the Galactic Empire was waking up to a truth they had buried for 10,000 years. They believed humanity was extinct. They believed they were safe. They were about to learn how wrong they were. He thought about Melissa Grant, alone on Prime, surrounded by aliens who would kill her if they discovered her true identity. She had volunteered for that mission knowing the risks. All of their watchers had. They had given up their natural appearance, their families, their entire lives to serve humanity from the shadows. Hoped their sacrifices would not be wasted. "Send the message," he ordered. "Let them know we are coming." The communications officer began preparing the transmission. It would be sent through a network of hidden relay stations, bouncing from one secret location to another until it reached the heart of Imperial space. The encryption was unbreakable by Imperial standards. The signal would appear to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. It would be a demonstration of human technological superiority wrapped in polite diplomatic language. Spoke the words that would be recorded and transmitted. "Greetings to the Galactic Dominion Council. We are the United Human Confederacy, survivors of the species you believed extinct. We have watched your empire for 3,000 years. We have grown in the spaces you never thought to explore. We request formal diplomatic contact to discuss our return to galactic civilization. We come in peace, but we are prepared for alternatives. Please respond on this frequency. We await your reply with patience and hope. The message was sent. The die was cast. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would never be the same. High Counselor had lived for 900 years. His species, though, were among the longest-lived creatures in the galaxy. They grew slowly, thought carefully, and rarely experienced surprise. Had governed the Dominion Council for 3 centuries. He had managed wars, negotiated treaties, and guided the Empire through countless crises. He believed he had experienced every possible situation that leadership could present. He was wrong. The message arrived during a routine council session. The 7 representatives of the elder races were discussing trade regulations when the communication system began behaving strangely. Screens flickered, lights dimmed, and then a voice spoke through speakers that should have been impossible to access. Greetings to the Galactic Dominion Council. We are the United Human Confederacy. The chamber fell silent, felt his blood turn cold. The message continued, explaining that humanity had survived, that they had been watching the Empire for thousands of years, that they wanted peaceful contact. When it ended, no one spoke for a long moment. The military advisor broke the silence first. This is a deception. Some rebel faction is playing games with us. The humans are extinct. Everyone knows this. Everyone knows what the records say, replied Ambassador, who had returned from Prime just days before. I have seen evidence that those records were. The purging did not succeed. Millions of humans escaped. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for calm investigation. The ambassador, an ancient creature with scales and yellow eyes, simply stared at the blank communication screen with what looked like terror. Raised his hand for silence. It took several minutes for order to return. We will respond to this message, he said. We will send a delegation to the coordinates they provided. We will learn whether this claim is real or false, and we will do so without panic. The military advisor protested. If the humans truly survived, they could be a threat. We should send a full battle fleet. And if they are telling the truth about watching us for 3,000 years, they will know exactly what we send, replied. We will send 3 warships and 1 diplomatic cruiser, a show of strength but not of aggression. We will learn what we are dealing with before we make any decisions. The delegation departed 2 days later. The journey to the coordinates took 3 weeks through standard hyperspace routes. When they arrived, they found themselves in an empty region of space, far from any star or planet. For a moment, the Imperial officers thought they had been tricked. Then a ship appeared. It was smaller than the Imperial cruisers, perhaps half the size of their smallest warship, but the energy readings coming from it made the tactical officer gasp in disbelief. The power output from that single vessel exceeded their entire fleet combined. Weapons systems of unknown design covered its hull. Shields of impossible strength surrounded it, and it had appeared from nowhere, as if it had simply materialized out of empty space. Imperial vessels, a voice said over the communication channel. This is Captain Bradley of the Human Confederacy ship Horizon. We welcome you to this meeting. Please follow us to the diplomatic station. Another ship appeared, and another and another. Within minutes, the Imperial delegation was surrounded by 100 human vessels, each one radiating more power than anything the Empire had ever built. The message was clear. We could destroy you right now if we wanted, but we choose not to. Captain Bradley was a man in his early 40s with brown hair and a calm expression. He greeted the Imperial representatives at the airlock of the diplomatic station, a structure that had apparently been built specifically for this meeting. He smiled and extended his hand in a gesture the aliens found strange and unsettling. Thank you for coming, said. I know this must be confusing and frightening for you. Please believe me when I say we have no desire for conflict. We simply want to talk." The lead imperial diplomat was unnamed. Her species was known for their skill in negotiation and their ability to remain calm in difficult situations. But even she struggled to maintain her composure as she walked through the human station. The technology was beyond anything she had seen. The walls seemed to shift and change color based on the moods of the people nearby. The air was perfectly clean and fresh, maintained by systems she could not identify. The lighting adjusted automatically to accommodate the different visual needs of each species present. Everything was designed with a level of sophistication that made imperial engineering look primitive. "How is this possible?" asked. "Your species was supposed to be at an early stage of development when the purging occurred. You should not have had the knowledge to create anything like this." Smiled sadly. "When you face extinction, you learn quickly. Our ancestors had 10 years of warning before the attack came. They spent that time preparing. They gathered every scientist, every engineer, every creative mind they could find. They built hidden bases and evacuation ships. They stole technology from species who traded with us. And when the fire fell from the sky, they were ready." "Ready to run," the military officer said with contempt. "Ready to survive," corrected. "There is no shame in retreat when the alternative is death. Our ancestors understood that the galaxy would not mourn their destruction. They understood that no one would help them, so they helped themselves. They fled to the empty spaces beyond your borders. They struggled. They suffered. Many died, but they never gave up." He led the delegation to a conference room where comfortable seats had been prepared for each species. Refreshments were offered, carefully prepared to match the dietary needs of each representative. The attention to detail was remarkable. "We have watched your empire for 3,000 years," continued. "We have learned your languages, your customs, your strengths, and your weaknesses. We have agents embedded throughout your society. We know more about the Dominion Council than most of its own members do." Felt a chill run down her spine. Why reveal yourselves now? Why not continue hiding? Because someone found the archives on because the truth was about to come out whether we wanted it to or not, and because we are tired of hiding. We want to come home. We want to take our place in the galaxy as equals, not as ghosts haunting the spaces between stars. The negotiations had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. The negotiations lasted for 40 standard cycles. Diplomats from both sides argued, discussed, and sometimes shouted at each other. But slowly, painfully, progress was made. And at the center of it all was a single question that no one wanted to answer. What really happened during the Great Purging and who was responsible? Commander Cole arrived at the diplomatic station on the 20th cycle. He came with a small team that included Dr. Melissa Grant, finally revealed as human after years of living as a spy. The imperial representative stared at her with a mixture of fascination and horror. She had lived among them, spoken with them, earned their trust, and they had never suspected the truth. "How many others are there like you?" asked the diplomat. Melissa smiled politely. "Thousands. We have watchers in every major institution in your empire. Universities, military academies, government offices, scientific laboratories. We have been gathering information for centuries." The military officer slammed his fist on the table. "This is an invasion. You have infiltrated our society. You have stolen our secrets. This is an act of war." "No," said calmly. "This is survival. Your ancestors tried to wipe us from existence. We needed to know if you would try again. We needed to understand our enemy, so we learned everything we could." He gestured to Melissa, who activated a display system. The screen filled with images and video recordings, all taken from the human archives that had been preserved for 10,000 years. "We want to show you something," said. "We want you to see what your ancestors did to our people." The first recordings showed human cities before the attack, beautiful places filled with life and activity, children playing in parks, musicians performing on street corners, families sharing meals together. It was a civilization at peace, unaware of the destruction heading toward them. Then the recordings changed. Ships appeared in the sky, massive warships bearing the symbols of the elder races. Without warning, without negotiation, without any attempt at communication, they opened fire. Orbital bombardment platforms rained destruction on the planet below. Cities burned. Millions died in the first hour. The Imperial representatives watched in silence. Some looked away, others could not stop staring. The recordings continued. They showed the desperate evacuation, ships launching from hidden bases while the world died around them. They showed the early years of exile, the overcrowded stations where disease spread quickly and food ran out often. They showed children who grew up without ever seeing sunlight, without ever feeling grass beneath their feet, without ever knowing what it was like to live without fear. 2 billion people died in the first attack, said quietly. Another billion died in the years that followed from starvation, disease, and despair. Your ancestors called it a necessary action. They called it protecting civilization. We call it what it was: genocide. High Counselor had joined the negotiations via holographic communication. He watched the recordings with an expression that might have been shame. When they ended, he spoke slowly. I did not know. The historical records describe the humans as a dangerous threat that had to be eliminated. They say the purging was quick and merciful. They do not show any of this. Of course they do not, Melissa replied. The truth was buried because it was ugly, because it made the founding of your empire look like murder rather than justice. Your ancestors built their power on a lie, and every generation since has believed that lie without question. Price stepped forward. She had been silent throughout the presentation, but now she spoke with emotion in her voice. We could have come back for revenge. Our fleet could destroy your military in months. Our technology could burn your worlds the way you burned ours. Many of our people wanted exactly that. They wanted the empire to suffer. They wanted you to feel the same fear and pain that our ancestors felt. She paused and looked around the room. But we chose differently. We decided that becoming like you was worse than any revenge could be worth. We built a civilization based on hope instead of fear. We raised our children to value life instead of conquest. We created art, music, and literature that celebrated survival and resilience. We became something better than what your ancestors tried to destroy. The diplomat leaned forward. What do you want from us? Answered, recognition. We want our place in the galaxy restored. We want to be treated as equals, not as a footnote in your history books. We want the truth about the purging to be acknowledged publicly. And we want assurances that what happened to us will never happen to any other species. You want us to admit that our empire was founded on atrocity, said. We want you to admit the truth, replied. What you do with that truth is your choice. But know this, we are not going back into hiding. We are not going to pretend the past did not happen. We will take our place in the galaxy one way or another. The only question is whether we do it as partners or as enemies. Had been running calculations throughout the meeting. Now he shared his findings with the Imperial delegation. Our tactical analysis shows that a war between our civilizations would last approximately 6 months. We would win, but the cost would be enormous on both sides. Billions would die. Economies would collapse. The galactic infrastructure that allows trade and communication between worlds would be severely damaged. It would take centuries to recover. He let those numbers sink in before continuing. Alternatively, we could work together. Our technology combined with your resources could solve problems that neither civilization can solve alone. We could expand into new regions of space. We could advance scientific understanding. We could build something greater than either of us could build separately. The Imperial representatives looked at each other. They had come expecting to find a weak remnant of a destroyed species. Instead, they had found a power that matched or exceeded their own. They had expected to offer terms from a position of strength. Instead, they were being offered a choice between cooperation and mutual destruction. Made his decision. I will recommend to the full council that we accept formal diplomatic relations with the human confederacy. I cannot promise they will agree, but I will try. It was a small step, but it was a beginning. One standard year passed after the first negotiations. It was a year of arguments, debates, protests, and difficult conversations. The Dominion Council met dozens of times to discuss what should be done about the humans. Some members wanted war. Others wanted to pretend the whole situation did not exist. But in the end, the practical voices won. The humans were too powerful to fight and too numerous to ignore. The only logical option was cooperation. The Treaty of Remembrance was signed on a space station orbiting the dead world of Prime, the place humans still called Earth. Representatives from both civilizations attended the ceremony. Commander Cole signed for the Human Confederacy. High Counselor signed for the Galactic Empire. When their hands touched over the document, a new chapter in galactic history began. The treaty had three main parts. First, humanity was officially recognized as a sovereign civilization with full rights and representation in galactic affairs. They would have a seat on the Reformed Council, equal to any of the elder races. Second, the truth about the Great Purging would be made public. Museums would be built. Educational programs would be created. Future generations would learn what really happened 10,000 years ago. Third, the Galactic Empire would be reorganized into the Galactic Commonwealth, a new structure that emphasized cooperation over domination. Not everyone was happy with these changes. Some members of the elder races felt humiliated. They had spent believing they were superior to all other species, and now they had to accept humans as equals. There were protests on several worlds. A few extremist groups called for resistance, but most citizens simply adapted to the new reality. The galaxy was big enough for everyone. For the humans, the changes were even more dramatic. After 3,000 years of hiding, they could finally live openly. Human ships traveled through imperial space without fear. Human traders established businesses on alien worlds. Human tourists visited places their ancestors had only dreamed about. And slowly, carefully, humans began returning to their original. Dr. Melissa Grant led the restoration project on Earth. The planet was badly damaged after 10,000 years of neglect. The atmosphere was thin and toxic. The oceans were polluted. The soil was barren. But Melissa had learned patience during her years as a spy. She knew that healing took time. "How long before people can live here again?" asked a young assistant named Laura, one of the first volunteers to join the project. Melissa looked at the gray sky above them. Machines worked constantly in the distance, cleaning the air and filtering the water. Somewhere beneath their feet, seeds were being planted in treated soil, waiting for the right moment to grow. "A century, maybe two," Melissa replied. "Our ancestors waited 3,000 years to come home. We can wait a little longer to make it worth coming home to." Commander Cole retired shortly after the treaty was signed. He had spent his entire adult life preparing for this moment, and now that it had arrived, he found himself unsure what to do next. He was tired. The weight he had carried for so long was finally lifted, and he needed time to remember who he was without it. He moved to New Providence, a garden world that human had created during the exile. It had blue skies, green forests, and wide rivers filled with fish imported from genetic archives. It was as close to the old Earth as any human colony had come. Built a small house on a hillside and spent his days watching the sunset, something his ancestors could only imagine during the dark years in the stations. Lieutenant Price, now promoted to ambassador, took place as the voice of humanity in galactic affairs. She was young, but she had proven herself during the negotiations. She understood both sides, the human desire for justice and the alien fear of change. She worked tirelessly to build bridges between civilizations that had been enemies for. "The old hatred will not disappear overnight," she told a gathering of young diplomats from both human and alien species. "There are still people who blame us for threatening their way of life, and there are still humans who cannot forgive what happened to our ancestors. But every generation will be a little further from the pain. Every generation will find it a little easier to see each other as people rather than enemies. Our job is to keep the conversation going until that happens." Captain Bradley took command of the first joint Commonwealth peacekeeping fleet. His crew included humans, and even a few who had overcome their species' traditional distrust. They patrolled the trade routes, responded to emergencies, and served as a living example that cooperation was possible. "We are all nervous," admitted to his crew before their first mission. "We have been taught to fear and distrust each other for generations. Those feelings do not disappear because a treaty was signed. But every day we work together, every problem we solve together, every moment we spend seeing each other as rather than aliens, we prove that the old ways do not have to continue. We can be better than our ancestors. We must be." Returned to his first love, engineering. He led the team that designed the new generation of ships, vessels that combined human innovation with alien manufacturing capabilities. The results were remarkable: faster engines, stronger shields, more efficient power systems, technology that neither civilization could have developed alone. "This is what happens when you stop fighting and start building," told a conference of engineers from across the Commonwealth. "Imagine what we could have achieved if we had been working together for the last 10,000 years instead of hiding from each other. Imagine what we can achieve in the next 10,000 if we do not waste any more time on hatred." The galaxy was changing. It was not a quick change or an easy one. There were setbacks and disappointments. There were moments when it seemed like the old divisions would never heal, but slowly, steadily, progress was made. On the first anniversary of the Treaty of Remembrance, Cole received a message from Price. She included a photograph taken from orbit, showing the first green plants growing on the restored Earth. Life was returning to the world that had been left for dead. Smiled and watched the sunset over New Providence. Somewhere out there, across the vast emptiness of space, his people were finally home, not just on one world but everywhere. The forgotten race was forgotten no more. And the galaxy was better for it.